that the defeat of Donald Trump is the end of violence?
Yeah, clearly they do. But these, that kind of relates to the rise of the so-called progressive prosecutors in so many cities. Those prosecutors, Dennis, did not seize power in any way. They were all elected.
Yes, that's my point.
By the people of their cities.
That's right.
And
yep.
And the liberal mind now has gotten to the point where it actually believes things such as that reducing the police function and replacing it, and this is explicit in their plans, replacing it with sociologists, social workers, interveners, and so forth, is going to reduce crime in those neighborhoods. And I have to say, I've written about this before, Dennis. To me, this is one of the greatest, most morally reprehensible issues of our time, which is to say, for 60 years, liberals, Democratic cities have been in charge of neighborhoods like the Bronx, Brownsville and Brooklyn, Compton, Watts, East St. Louis, South Side of Chicago, on and on. 60 years of failure because those neighborhoods have not changed all that much, and we know what's going on every weekend in places like the South Side of Chicago or the Bronx. And I think what's been going on here is that liberalism is so appalled and so embarrassed at this catastrophe that they now are trying to simply explain it away as something that doesn't exist. In other words, these aren't real crimes. These are behavioral problems.
Right.
That is irrational.
Or a result of Donald Trump. That's what your colleague, well, they're not your colleagues, your fellow quote-unquote journalists, I don't think that the New York Times deserves that term, but you don't have to react to that. But that's what they are saying down the street, as it were, from the Wall Street Journal at the New York Times. All of this is a result of Donald Trump, and I believe a serious percentage of Americans believe that.
The animosity towards Trump, whatever one may think about Trump personally or his policies, the level of animosity towards him has obviously reached, I think, seriously, a clinical neurosis. We talk about Trump derangement syndrome. Well, I hope someday psychologists are actually writing about it explicitly. But as you know, we now have the spectacle, really, of articles being written in the mainstream media, The Atlantic, The Washington Post, suggesting that Democrats somehow may not be able to emotionally accept a possible Trump victory. They themselves suggesting there may be violence in the street.
That's right.
Over that.
Yep.
That is just unbelievable in my mind. And I think that's really why Attorney General Barr yesterday suggested that prosecutors consider prosecuting people for sedition, because I think he sees a situation coming after the election in which a lot of Democrats simply won't accept it and are going to engage in violent civil demonstrations against a legitimate presidency.
That's the reason, and this was not a challenge. It was truly an open question. I think there is an element of insanity, but I also think that there's a moral element, which you do too, obviously. You said it's morally reprehensible. So what you're saying, though, I mean, let's be clear. If the left, and I always distinguish between left and liberal, if the left is insane, then the Democratic Party is insane because it's run by the left.
Yes, I mean, I suggested as much in my column that the Democrats are tipping over into a kind of irrationality. And one's hope. And I'm with you, Dennis. I do try to make that distinction between liberals and the left. And one keeps hoping that
the liberals will do the same.
will do the same.
All right, let me tell everybody, your column is up, of course, at our website. Thank you for writing it, and let's pray for the best. Thank you, Dan Henninger.
Okay, Dennis. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.